Hello, everybody. Thank you. I want to personally thank Professor Philip Hughes for being the leader of our research team. He's the one that has kept us together and motivated the entire project. And we owe him a lot. So thank you, Philip, for that. And also, he's the backbone behind the organisation of today's event. It was his going to the University of Divinity asking for a small research grant that paid for today's lunch. So we thank you, Philip, for all the work that you've done. For more than 40 years, Philip has been charting the faith of Australians, doing interviews throughout the country, conducting surveys and analysing the census. Through all his work, he's been asking about how people find meaning and purpose, and what role does religious faith and spirituality play in that. He was involved in a big study of youth 20 years ago. He's done studies of immigrant communities. Nearly 10 years ago, Philip retired from full-time employment, though it's probably hard for us to see that in reality, because he's still just been doing some work at Pilgrim. But he has continued doing research, has supervised 10 students studying for their doctorates, including Fleur. His latest book charted the way that involvement in religious organisations has declined in recent decades and explains why these trends might be occurring. But if people are not finding meaning through religious faith, how are they finding it? As a retiree himself, Philip has been asking about how retired people find meaning. But Philip does not spend all his life in work. He's a highly involved grandparent with 2 grandchildren. He is also a keen movie maker and enjoys being part of the Ringwood Movie Makers Club. He chairs the Maroondah Interfaith Network, which seeks to bring people together from the various religions in the area. He is a member of the Ringwood Uniting Church and a keen member of a local walking group. So Philip will now describe what the interviews have told us about the roles organisations, clubs, associations, choirs, community gardens, churches can play in helping people to find meaning. Thank you, Philip.
Thanks very much, Robin. And it's been good to have Robin as part of the team, as it has Fleur, Enchi, and also one other, and Stephen, and one person who wasn't able to be here but is part of the team, Johannes Lutz. So it's been 7 of us, in fact, doing the research together, and each of us have made our own contributions. I'm going to start with a question for you to discuss, and then I'll talk. Now, let's see if this... There we go. Nope, there's the question. There's the question. So, are there organisations in which you've been involved which have indeed added to your sense of meaning in life? And how have they done that? So I'm not talking just about social connections here. I'm talking about your involvement in organisations which may be formal or may be informal, but how have they added meaning? Before we come back to that very question, I just want to talk briefly about what meaning in life is. There's been a lot of research in this area now, recently. One of the books that I found really useful was Tatjana Schnell, The Psychology of Meaning in Life. Another book, Gordon Flett, The Psychology of Mattering. I'll come to that in a few moments. Tatjana Schnell is an interesting person, an Austrian, part of Innsbruck University, but also teaches in Norway, in Oslo Theological College. And and she sends down an enormous amount of material online, which I've been able to pick up from time to time. She talks about 4 dimensions of meaning and says that meaning involves all of these things. And the first of that is having directions. And that means having purpose. And we've talked quite a bit already today about having a sense of purpose. But she wants to add to that the importance of coherence in those directions. So it doesn't give you a sense of meaning if you've got different directions that you're trying to head in all at the same time. There needs to be, your meaning actually comes through having some sense of coherence in all of that. And then she talks about belonging. Belonging as a part of our sense of meaning and of significance in our belonging. So when we feel that we are significant, that our existence matters, that gives us a sense of meaning. And indeed, that's been picked up in other research around the world. Certainly, and the term that's been used is mattering. When people feel that they matter, that their existence matters, that they would be missed if they weren't around, that even if when they're gone, something of their legacy will remain. That sense of mattering actually makes a significant difference and gives people a sense of meaning. Now, she goes on to talk about a range of different roads to meaning in life. And first of all, I've grouped them into 3 groups. There's what we might call the cosmic road, as it were. So mattering, you matter in your sense of the universe. God's given you a place, maybe one formulation of it. So religions give us that sense of the wider universe and also the fact that we matter within it. But that can also come from ideologies. It can come from movements. It can even from our ethnicity. We matter because we're Greek or we're English or we're Australian or we're Thai or whatever. We're significant because we're part of that community. Sometimes it's a matter of we matter because we're contributing to humanity as a whole. We're doing something that makes the world a little bit better for others. And that can give us a sense of meaning. But then there's also other things which are highly personal, which are roads to meaning that Schnell talks about. So sometimes creating a beautiful picture, painting, can give us a real sense of fulfillment and help to give us meaning in life. There could be many other personal projects which give us a sense of meaning. Putting your family history together, even as an individual, can give you a sense of meaning. And then there's also the interpersonal things. And that's what we've focused on generally today. But remember that it's part of a range of roads to meaning. So social relationships, being valued and giving value. So what about organisations and how do they fit into all of that? Organisations are the context in which most of the social relationships occur and where we find most meaning. Now, organisations may be formal, they may be informal, as we've seen, and we also find meaning in family and our place in the family. We find it amongst our friends and having a place amongst our friends. We find it through personal projects that we're involved in and that we're doing. So organisations can assist us in a range of ways in creating meaning. So one of the things they can do is to build on what gives people personal fulfilment. They can provide opportunities for developing skills in bonsai, in movie making, in playing mahjong, or whatever it is. They can give opportunity to use skills. So we had people in our that we interviewed were involved in radio announcing, genealogical research, in theatre, in music. You can't sing in a choir unless you've got more than one of you. Otherwise you're singing solo. So organisations provide that context where you can find that sort of fulfilment. One of the basic values that has emerged in the boomer generation in particular, and I don't think it was there with previous generations in the same way, was the idea that we're after personal fulfilment. That's one of the basic sort of goals that most of us aspire to, finding something that gives us personal fulfilment. And so organisations can assist as they help people to find that personal fulfilment. And as we've said, can find it in a great variety of ways. I think for the previous generation, and it's still present, it was present for one or two people in our interviews, the basic value was fulfilling duty to family, to community, to the nation as a whole. And that sense of personal fulfilment was not as large or as significant as it is for the present generation that is retiring. There we go. Sorry. So a second requirement for creating meaning, for organisations to help create meaning, is to build on what people actually need, or what they feel that they need. And certainly for most retirees, the idea of increasing or maintaining health is one of those things that most of us need to do, and therefore that can be used as a starting point for bringing people together. And that's the basis of the walking group, the golf club, and sporting groups of various kinds, physical activity groups, gyms, and so on. Another part of it is that increase in mental and social stimulation. And most of us are aware that our mental capacity, I'm certainly aware that my mental capacity is not quite the same as it was 10 years ago. I need to keep being stimulated, and I need to do things that will engage me in that sort of way. So that, again, is another need. And then there's the spiritual exploration of life, or the nurturing of the spiritual dimension that many of us feel is a need that we need to keep our eyes on. So again, these are things that organisations can build on. Often it's a matter for organisations to find the catalysts that will bring people together. Third area is the social area. Organisations can provide the context in which people build relationships with each other. And meaning arises not just when we know other people, but where we feel that we're known personally, that we're respected, where we feel that we're appreciated, where we feel that we're valued. And so that, again, is an important thing for organisations to do, to develop that sense that we are valued, the people in the organisation are valued. And usually that occurs in small groups, relatively small groups, up to 20 people. If you've got 50 people coming together, you're not necessarily going to be interacting with all the members of the group on a regular basis in general. It's the small group that actually works best in terms of people feeling that they matter. And it's necessary for those groups to meet fairly regularly, so that individuals are well known and in fact have the opportunity to share on a continuing basis something of their stories. It needs, the atmosphere needs to be respectful and appreciative of each person. And certainly within that group, the opportunity to share some of life's experiences. So these are things that organisations can develop and encourage to occur within their own context. My sense is that some churches bring people together, but don't in fact sort of have those characteristics whereby people actually feel that they're given meaning through their interaction with the church. Third thing is providing the opportunities for individuals to contribute to others. And certainly that's been noted before today. And that can take a great range of forms. It can be, for some people, providing opportunities within the group for people to contribute to other people in the group. Other times it can actually mean working with a group to do something for others. But part of our sense of meaning arises not only when we feel that we matter and we are valued, but we feel that we're actually giving some value to others. So mattering is both of those. We matter but to others, but we can contribute to others. So organisations can set up, as it were, contexts in which people can find meaning by helping to give direction and purpose, coherence in those things. And they do that by building on personal directions and purposes in a coherent way. But secondly, they build belonging in which people are personally valued. And thirdly, they build the opportunity for people to contribute in ways which gives people significance. So, what's not working well for boomers? It's interesting that amongst the things that are not working are groups which are based around entertainment. Now, entertainment is something that is a good distraction in life. People like to entertainment, but it doesn't actually add much to your sense of meaning. It's interesting when we've asked in our surveys about what makes life worthwhile for people, and watching films, which people do a lot, watching television or whatever, that's good entertainment, but it doesn't in itself give much meaning. And my sense is that I do go and show films every now and again to the senior citizens group that's nearby where we live. And their program tends to be based largely on entertainment. And as such, they're not finding it easy to get new members. It's not working for a large number of people. It's a bit like that you go on the holiday and they come back and you're bored. On the other hand, at least for some people, it does provide an opportunity for social connections. And as those social connections grow, so the meaningfulness of that develops. Many clubs and other groups have focused on entertainment as a draw card. But my sense is that people like to attend events for entertainment, but it doesn't lead to commitment of any kind. It's when it does lead to social groups where there is some connection to other people that those type of activities can be meaningful. Another group of organisations which is finding it hard to make headway these days are in fact those built around service. They've played a big role in our society over the last 100 years or so. The Rotaries, the Lions, the Freemasons and so on have been important organisations that have brought people together for service and have contributed greatly to our community. And yet they're finding it really hard to attract new people. It was, I saw in the Age, the ABC news came up the other day that Rotary has just, in Myrtleford, has closed after 100 years. The numbers just went down and down, and they couldn't keep going. Now, there are people who we found connected to those service organisations who found a great deal of meaning within them. Most of those people had joined when they were young, and they built their social connections, and the service plus the social connections had actually given them meaning over a long period of time. And so it worked well for some of those people. Certainly for some others, there are opportunities where they can use their specific skills as individuals. And it's through the use of those specific skills that they find meaning. There were some individuals in our group, in our interviewees, who did go to groups in order to find an opportunity to contribute. Certainly there was one person who retired as a nurse. She said, I've got to find something else to do, and she went off to join a group that provided meals for the homeless. So there are people who do that. Usually it's the social element then that keeps people involved and keeps them involved in that group. But again, it's difficult for those service organisations today. The third thing that's not working particularly well for a whole lot of boomers is that religious organisations are finding it hard to attract older people unless they've been involved for a long time in their churches. There was a time when it was a duty to attend your religious groups, but that sense of duty has tended to weaken over the years. But the most effective religious groups are those which do provide small groups where people are valued and where they feel they can contribute value. And indeed, we deliberately went to a wide range of denominations in our sampling, And out of our 71 people, 45 of them were involved in a church. And quite a lot of them said, yes, we find meaning in there, but almost all of those people said we find the meaning particularly in the small groups in which we're involved. So they talked about their Bible studies, their grow groups, ministry groups, rather than the church services as such, as a focus for social connection and for meaning. And we found it very interesting that quite a number of people who actually did attend a church said, I attend, but I don't find that as the focus of my sense of meaning. That all gives rise to the question of cosmic meaning over against interpersonal meaning. And certainly for some people, that meaning is enhanced by the feeling that there is a cosmic dimension to who they are and what they're doing. So there was people who talked about the sense that they were connected to God in some way, and that gave them a sense of value, a sense of significance. But the majority of people didn't speak that way. It was in fact through the interpersonal aspects of the church in which that perhaps cosmic reality became a personal reality, and therefore much more important to their personal sense of meaning. It's best, I think, if that cosmic sense of meaning and the interpersonal sense of meaning can come together, as it were, in providing us with meaning in life. As we've seen today, personal meaning requires social contact with people who know you well and who respect you, amongst whom you can share your stories and to whom you can contribute. But social cohesion actually requires something a bit different. It actually requires the people are involved in groups of people who are different from themselves. It requires us to cross the boundaries. It requires us to be involved with people who are different in terms of gender, age, ethnicity, language, education. And again, that's one thing that we're finding increasingly difficult, I think, in our society. It's easy to be in a group of people who are like ourselves, who have a similar background to ourselves and so on. And that sort of connection is really important. But for social cohesion as a whole, we actually need opportunities to cross those social boundaries. And that's what we're finding much more difficult. There were a number of other barriers to meaningful social connection, and I'll just name them briefly in terms of the frequency mentioned by our interviewees. Certainly health, disability and access issues came up as very significant for quite a lot of people. It just wasn't possible for them to be part of what they wanted to be part of for those sorts of reasons. There were others who felt that the people involved in the groups they tried to get in touch with, tried to be part of, had different values. They didn't feel accepted in those groups. They felt the people were different. Sometimes they felt that they were judged in some way. And that can occur in all sorts of ways. Person goes off to a line dancing group and finds that they're not in step. Is one sort of example. It can occur in many different ways. You need to have groups of different levels of expertise. so that there's a place for the beginners and there's a place for those who are skilled, as it were. Certainly the issues of bullying and other forms of abuse were mentioned a few times in our interviews. Interestingly, they came up most frequently in relation to churches. So that remains an issue. But another thing that was also mentioned a number of times by interviewees was just their personal lack of confidence. And people don't necessarily feel confident in going along to a group. And certainly this was raised earlier in the day, the importance of knowing people beforehand who can go along with you or being paired up with others. My last church, we had a group, we imported a group of young people from rural areas, and we built up a community of people for whom we provided accommodation in a number of houses. And we invited those people then we invited the older people in the church to invite the young people to a meal at their home. The young people were very reticent to go as single individuals. We paired them up and they were very happy to go. It was much easier to go in pairs than it was to go singly. And I think there was a good lesson for us there. If you could work with groups of people rather than just expecting individuals to come in, it's often much more successful. Let me finish with just a couple of examples of groups which came up in our interviews as groups which were growing. And certainly U3A has been mentioned a number of times already. It is growing in numbers, not just in Australia, but in other places too, under different names. And certainly it's attracting people, I think, because it offers a great variety of courses in matters of people's personal interest. So it can build on those personal interests. The small groups allow for growth in social connection. And what's important within the groups, the small groups that meet over whatever topic it might be, is that there is that opportunity for the development of social connections within the group. And thirdly, there is the opportunity within their structures for people to contribute to others by offering their own skills, their own interests, and so on. So that sort of thing is working really well, and I think provides a little bit of a pattern for other organisations. Community choirs, community gardens can also be another example. They attract people who have a similar interest. And again, they give the opportunity for people to contribute, but also the opportunity for social connections to be built. So there's just a couple of possibilities there, and a few things that we can learn on and reflect on. I want to thank the University of Divinity and CRA, which have sponsored these seminars. And thank you to those who've done the practical work, especially to Letha, who works in the CRA office, and Stephen, who coordinates the CRA's research activities. I hope you've found the research engaging and the presentation stimulating. After working on this material for a couple of years, some of the research findings seem obvious. And when I talk with people about the research, many people respond by saying, well, of course, that is exactly what happens. They then tell me about the particular small groups where they found meaningful relationships. Yet, many organisations do not make this a priority. There are many churches which focus on the big meeting for worship on Sunday morning and ignore the house groups which gather during the week and see them as secondary, or even do not have
small group activities. There are many organisations which actually try and get people in by entertainment, not realising that this focus on entertainment may engage people for a while and take their minds off their problems, but is not a good base for giving meaning. So, if you're working for an organisation which works with retirees, I hope you've found something here worthwhile. And if you're a retiree, I hope you've found encouragement to develop relationships which contribute to ongoing meaning and purpose in life.